Are you still sending out resumes and hearing crickets? Applying for jobs and hoping it's going to turn into an opportunity for you? Well, let me give you a little bit of insight that I've had as somebody who's worked with over 500 job hunters at this point and how the market has shifted. Just this spring, and now we're into summer, I am hearing from multiple clients that recruiters are saying to them, we're only interviewing candidates we know. Applying to jobs, even though there are lots posted out there and you'd think that would mean they're accepting applications, isn't working at the moment. It just really isn't. It doesn't matter how great your resume is. You are not going to get success, or at least you're going to be very unusual if you get success at the moment in this current market. But here's the other thing. I'm having more and more clients landing jobs right now. But you know what they're doing? They're networking. Recruiters know them, and that's how they're getting interviews. So I want to dive into why networking is now more vital, and precisely networking with recruiters is more vital than ever for job seekers and leaders in 2025. So what is your networking strategy? Do you have one? If not, you're missing a trick. So let's dive on into the show. If you've come to listen to this episode, but you're thinking, I don't like networking. Networking is incredibly time consuming. I don't have time to network. I want you to ask yourself, well, if you need a job, can you afford not to network? But here's the other side of it. Networking doesn't have to take a lot of time. Networking is actually small, consistent action every single day. Here's something I know about leaders. The best leaders are networking all the time, even when they're in work. And I've actually got a client right now who, actually have two clients right now, if I think about it, who are job hunters. And they, within a month of deciding to network, they have offers on the table, the pair of them. One of them is probably going to reject the offer because it's not what she wants. But two of them have offers on the table after just starting to network just a month ago. Because you know what they were doing? Before they started job hunting, they already had a great network. So here's the thing you need to know as a leader. Networking, micro networking, as I like to call it, is something that is part of the job of a leader at all times. Your network is part of why you're hired. Your reputation in the community is why companies want to hire you. So networking is part of the job description of a senior leader. But if you haven't got a network that's set up for that, don't panic. I want you to know you can still network, even if you've got a full-time job, and still land an opportunity. But the key thing is recognizing that asking for jobs is not going to land you your next opportunity. You've got to create the opportunities. You've got to network in the right way. You've got to get people to refer you to recruiters. You've got to make connections with recruiters. And you've got to have a network of peers and potential hiring managers who just think you're the bee's knees. So I want you to ask yourself, if you're telling yourself you don't have time for networking, that it's too time consuming, why don't you have time for networking? What are you doing instead? What would happen if this resulted in your next opportunity? I want you to know why you think you don't have time for networking, because it's a choice at the end of the day. You're choosing to do other things in networking. You're probably telling yourself this is uncomfortable and it's easier to stay where you are. Here's the thing. Sometimes it's easier to stay where you are and complain about your job and say, I don't have time. But the reality is the stress is staying, the underfulfillment. Perhaps you are somebody who knows that she's done. Perhaps you're like one of my clients who has been doing the job of a VP of engineering, but is still stuck with a director title. She's running a huge team, has a director title, is actually getting the compensation. This is something I'm very happy about. She has been compensated at the VP level, but her company refuses to give her the title. And she's come to me and said, I need to do something about this. They've been promising it for 3 years and it's not happening. And it is holding her back because it means she's only being reached out for director level roles rather than VP level roles, which is where she's actually at. So if you're telling yourself you don't have the time, what is that costing you? What is it costing you to stay where you are? To stay in the situation of stress, of unfulfillment, of lack of recognition? Because if you're listening to this episode, you probably are aware that it's time to move on. And so why are you not prepared to network? So that's the first thing to ask yourself. If you're saying, I don't have time to network, what are you doing instead? Do you really have time to not network? Remember though, your stress is created by your thoughts. If you are telling yourself that networking is hard, if networking is uncomfortable, it will be hard and uncomfortable and it will be stressful. If you're telling yourself you don't have time to network, that creates stress. If you tell yourself, I'm going to network, it reduces your stress, even though it might be stressful in the moment. But here's the other thing I know. Networking becomes easier over time, which brings me to point number 2 about networking. You might be telling yourself, I don't like people, I'm an introvert, I don't network because of that. Here's the thing. I speak from lots of experience here. Networking isn't about being extroverted. It's about building genuine connections. And I say that as an extreme introvert, an introvert who, when she does a Myers-Briggs test, gets really far down the end of the introvert spectrum. I'm almost off the blinking scale. And yet networking is my everyday activity. Networking is my joy, my jam, because I meet people one-on-one. So it's about networking in a way that feels genuine and good to you. If you're telling yourself I'm an introvert, or I don't like people, or I don't like networking, it's about finding the right way. What I also know is successful networking right now, here in 2025, is not about going to a mass event. Great networking is meeting people one-on-one. Now, you might meet them at a networking event, but what you actually do at the networking event isn't going to be the thing that opens the door. It's about the follow-up. So I'm a huge believer in networking on LinkedIn. It's about that one-on-one outreach, the written communication, offering value. If you are networking this way, it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be too scary. I'm not saying it's not going to be scary the first time. If you've not done this before, I freely admit the first time we do anything is scary. But you can coach yourself through the scariness, through the overwhelm, and we can do this piecemeal. Just pick one person to reach out to. You don't have to go to a large networking event. More than that, there are so many different ways to network. So if you don't like a particular way of networking, let's look at what else is available. Go to networking events, have coffee chats, reach out to people on LinkedIn, reach out to existing network. I'm a huge believer in your existing network being the best place to start. They might not be the people to offer you a job, but given that what networking is really about is getting an introduction to the next person, what you want to do is reach out to your existing network, ask for catch-up, solve a problem for them. I talk about this all the time to my clients. Solve a problem and then say, is there anybody else you think would be interested in meeting me? And get your existing network to make an introduction. If you're scared, let's get specific. What are you scared of? What might happen? It's not acceptable to say, I don't like people, I'm an introvert. I want you to get specific as to what you're afraid of. Sometimes just getting specific is enough to realize I'm not that scared. I'm just telling myself a story. And it's kind of like the story of I don't have time. It's a reason that you're holding yourself back, but it's not the real reason. You just don't want to. I want you to be really intentional in the way you make connections. It shouldn't be transactional. It shouldn't be, you do this to me, I'll do that for you. It should be meaningful. It should be something that somebody's going to remember you for. It should be collaborative. It should be making the person in front of you think, this is the person I need to talk to all the time. That is great intentional networking. If you go into it going, what can they do for me? It's transactional. It's not meaningful. Believe me, your network is just going to shut you down. In this day and age when so many people are being asked for things all the time, if they think you are just there to ask for a job, they are not going to network with you. So I want you to be intentional, and that can reduce your stress. If you're intentional to build a meaningful connection, it's about connecting more than it's about asking. You are going to come out of the situation with more. So I want you to change your story about networking, as in, it's not about you. It's not about meeting lots of people. It's about one person at a time. And it's about having an intent of building a connection that brings you joy, that lights you up. See if you can make that a connection. You think, oh, I'd love to hang out with that person over coffee. I'd love to meet them in the evening, go to the bar and have a great drink because we just connected. If you can go in with that intention, even when you don't know the person, go in with the intention of trying to build that kind of relationship, you are going to be rewarded because you've done the right kind of networking. So stop telling yourself, I don't have time. Stop telling yourself it's scary. Stop telling yourself you're an introvert and therefore you can't do it. And instead go, how can I make this a new connection that lights me up? I meet women all the time, and I often am like, I need this woman to stay in my sphere. She might not need a coach right now, but how can I just hang out with her? And I will just offer to like have a virtual coffee chat, to do something for them, because I'm like, this is my kind of lady. I want her in my community. How can I find a way to hang out with her? And I'm just really intentional with that. And you know what? That is why I have such a great community of people around me, why I'm never lacking work, why I love what I do so much, and why I have a line of people offering to help me at times. I met a lady just yesterday who is in an adjacent business. She doesn't work in my business. And we just hit it off, and we're both like, how can we collaborate? What can we do here? Because we both had the intention of going in and making a meaningful connection, and we just hit it off. So the next thing about networking, when you're thinking, okay, I'm hearing Tony. I know I need to network my way to a job in 2025. But what does that mean? Because a lot of networking feels inauthentic and it feels transactional, what I've just been talking about. Here's the thing, the mindset shift I want you to make. Networking is about mutual support, and it's not about self-promotion. So I want you to reframe your networking as helping others, not just yourself. It doesn't have to be that you're getting something from somebody else. What you want to do is walk in with the purpose of building a relationship. When you think it's transactional, you are telling yourself you need something from this. When you think, how can I build a relationship? You're going to ask questions. You're going to solve problems. You're going to make that person happy and delighted. And then when they meet somebody who needs someone, they're going to think of you. If you've gone in with, hey, I need a job, they're going to be like, oh, that's nice. I'd love to help. Can I give you some feedback on your resume? If you are getting that kind of thing as a result of networking, let me give you some feedback on your resume. Let me give you some feedback on your LinkedIn profile. You are not networking the right way. You are focusing them in on how can I help her because she needs to job hunt, rather than this person is awesome. Let me introduce her to my entire network. So step away from it being transactional. Step away from needing something. And if you are falling into the trap of getting feedback on your resume and LinkedIn for the 10th time, believe me, you're not asking the right questions and you're going in with the wrong attitude. Every person, just as a side note, every person that looks at your resume and LinkedIn will give you different advice. And I would say a lot of the advice out there is well-intentioned, but harmful. There's so many resumes where I started working with a client, and the first thing we often do is go into their resume, make sure it's decent, right? There's infinite room for improvement on resume writing, but diminishing returns. Same with LinkedIn. And the number of times where they'll say to me, oh, I had advice from all these different people. Here's what I wrote. And I'm like, can I have a look at the thing you wrote before you started getting that advice? And either it's no better or worse, it's actually worse. People are well-intentioned, but most people don't know what it takes to write a good resume. They know what a good one looks like when they read it, but they don't actually know what it takes to get through an ATS filter, what recruiters are really looking for. Or for that matter, recruiters will give advice to clients of mine, and it's so specific to a very specific role that it doesn't actually help them figure out how to land general roles. And although I'm a big believer in tailoring, I say to clients, you should tailor for every single role. You need to know what it takes to tailor, rather than tailoring to a specific role and thinking that's what it's taking to get any job. So be very cautious about getting advice from people, just as a side note. But you will find people who care about you, but all they're hearing is, I need a job, just offering advice. Like why you didn't land a job, why you didn't network well. And if that's you, you're going in with the wrong intention into your networking. So let's talk about where to start. Well, as I said, the strongest place to start is your existing network. Look at your existing network for mutual support and not self-promotion. I want you to look at who you know and reach out to them. If you've not reached out to somebody for 3 to 6 months, it's time to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to catch up. Let's have a coffee chat. Let's have a virtual coffee chat. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what's going on. If you remember something about them personal, like, their kid was sick last time you spoke to them, ask them how their kid is. Ask them what's going on in their life. Ask them what they're struggling with, and try and find something that is difficult for them and give them some ideas. It almost doesn't matter what that is. It doesn't have to be work related. It's useful if it's work related, but it doesn't actually have to be work related, because what you're aiming to do is get them to talk about themselves and make them feel that you've unlocked them in some way. When we do that for somebody else, people remember just feeling good around you. One, people love to talk about themselves. And two, when you unlock them, they feel, even if you just like said 30 seconds or something, they did 30 minutes talking, you said 30 seconds, but it was something that they went, oh, that feels good. They are going to just remember thinking, she made my life better. So I want you to leverage your existing network, leverage alumni groups, LinkedIn, your community, any communities in your industry. Look at who you already know. Pick 10 people to reach out to this week. If it's your full-time job, by the way, 10 people a day. If you're out of work job hunting, I get my clients to reach out to 10 people per day with an aim to get 1 to 2 calls booked in the calendar. I have one client right now. She's kick-ass. She has reached out to 30 people this week, and she has had 5 calls already at the point of, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. She's had 5 calls already this week. And so you just got another 8 booked in. I mean, those are phenomenal results. In the current economic climate, people are quite wary of responding even to their existing network. I used to say, with your existing network, you should aim for 50% success rate in getting on calls. Today, 10 to 20% is not unreasonable. So 10 calls, 10 outreaches a day or 10 outreaches a week, depending on whether this is a full-time job or this is just networking on the side. You should get 1 or 2 calls out of that. To get closer to 50%, mind-blowing. But what you're then going to do, once you've got a conversation going with somebody who is in your network already, you're going to impress them. And at the end, you're going to say, I really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anybody else it would be useful for me to be introduced to? You're going to ask for an introduction. That's your only ask. You've just spent 20, 30 minutes impressing them, solving problems, having a good conversation. You are not asking for a job. You're asking for an introduction. And by the way, if your mindset is saying, I'm worried about bothering people, or I'm not in the right circles, I want you to ask yourself, why are you scared of that? Most people are genuinely nice, which is why I think when I've got clients who said, oh, everyone's just giving me resume advice, it's because people really want to help. They're not prepared to go as far as introduce you to someone because you haven't proved yourself. We're very protective of our own networks, right? We don't introduce unless we're like, yeah, okay, I trust you're going to improve this relationship. But we're more than happy to solve a problem for somebody we care about. We want to help. The problem is when that help is directed at something unhelpful, like another person giving you advice on your resume. But stop telling yourself you're worried about bothering people because most people actually do genuinely care. So I want you to look at your network. And by the way, networking applies to every aspect of your life. I had a client a few years ago who landed a job offer after having a conversation at a soccer game. She just spoke to, I think, a dad at the soccer game. I don't think it was a mum, which was disappointing to me. But she spoke to a dad at the soccer game, and that person introduced her to a founder who then hired her. So have the intention of just practicing meaningful conversations, genuine conversations in every aspect of your life. Stop just asking, hey, how was your weekend? Take it to the next level. Ask them how they're really getting on. Build deep connections. I think this is one of the things I am quite proud of in my life. I don't have a huge local network. Mind you, I've only just moved to this area. I'll just be honest about that. But also, I network so much that I'm kind of done when I go out. But the people I do know, I try and build really meaningful connections. I want to genuinely understand them. I want them to know I'm there for them. I want them to know I would drop things and help them out if they needed it. Try and build a genuine conversation everywhere you go. Just practice. Go to the grocery store and have a genuine conversation. I want you to reframe I'm a nuisance into I'm worthy of being in the room because I make people's lives better. Remember, though, you have to offer value. Every conversation is about being the best version of yourself and helping that person in front of you move forward. And remember, as a leader, leadership is about everyone else. So I want you to let go of it being about you. Networking as a leader is about that person in front of you. Leadership is about everybody other than you. I actually had a client not that long ago say to me, when is leadership about me? When do I get what I need? And I said to her flippantly, well, never. Leadership is always about everybody else. The role is about what everybody else is thinking, what everybody else is feeling, why they're not doing what you need. The selfish bit is, I need them to do this. How can I make them see that, though, is making them about everybody else. So just put that leadership hat on. Leadership is about everybody else. The selfish bit comes with, I'm going to negotiate for myself. I'm going to make sure I get the right job offer. I'm going to make sure I get well compensated. But for networking, put your leadership hat on. It is about everybody else and what they need, and having a mission of focusing on how can I help this person rather than focusing on how can I get ahead. Stop focusing on getting ahead. Focus on what everybody else in front of you needs. Okay, let me talk you through my recipe for networking in 2025 and why it needs to be different. Because it is people focused, not me focused. First of all, one-on-ones is the most powerful thing you can do. Secondly, reach out to 10 people at a time. LinkedIn is a great place to work. If you are full-time job hunting, as I said earlier in the show, you need to be reaching out to 10 people minimum per day. You can reach out to 100 plus per week on LinkedIn, by the way. And actually, I think if they're already connected with you, you can do 250. Don't quote me on that. It's a large number. You can reach out to 100 people building new connections. I'm advocating reach out to your existing network to 10 people per day, 20 people per day if you're really enthusiastic. If you're in a full-time job and you're not actively job hunting, 10 people a week is absolutely fine. Existing network. You do not have to pick up the phone unless you are a phone number person. Ask them for a catch-up. That's it. Like, it's been a while since we spoke. Do you have time for a virtual coffee chat? I'd love to hear what's going on right now. You're aiming for between 10 and 25% of those people you reach out to resulting in an actual catch-up. 10 to 25. 10 to 20. If you've got a really great network, it should be up to 50. But as I said, that's hard to achieve in the current climate. Ask them how they're doing. Solve a problem for them. Go in with the intention of being the leader who's excited about who they are, what they're struggling with, how their life is going. Ask questions that get them thinking about how a friend or a colleague might benefit from meeting you. And then in the wrap-up, do not ask for a job. Do not say, I'm job hunting. Are any of your friends job hunting? If they offer, hey, I've got a friend who's looking for people like you, be like, that would be lovely. I am currently on the market, right? You can see that. But you do not sour that hard work you've done with saying, I'm job hunting. That's where everybody's falling down right now. Because right now, there are just not enough jobs for everybody. And so everybody's very cagey. Like, everybody's like, I want to help, but this is the 10th person this week that's asked me for a job. Instead, you can casually mention you're discussing opportunities. And if there's somebody in the network that would benefit from having a conversation with you, I would be so grateful for an introduction. But it's more about how you're going to help people than because you want your next big thing. If you can, avoid cold outreach. Introductions will typically deliver, if you get an introduction from one person, 50 to 75% of those introductions will result in new connections. If instead you just reach out to people, you're looking at 5 to 10%. So I do this. I do this to build my network. I reach out to people all the time. 5 to 10% is what we're looking for. If you can find somebody to introduce you, 50 to 75% will accept your connection request. Okay? The key thing, give value, give value, give value. Follow up with relevant topics, articles, something that's going to help them reach a goal, something that's going to answer a challenge they've got at work. Follow up and ask them how the personal item is, the kid that was sick, the pet that ran away, follow up and ask them how things are going. Always be building your connection. Hey, there is nothing wrong with creating a personal CRM. I just use a spreadsheet to keep it simple. That is who you've spoken to and what's recently gone in their lives. I actually think it builds huge connection. I'm such a forgetful person. And I think it means so much to me when somebody remembers a personal detail about me. I remember this with my dentist years and years ago. I'd see her every 6 months and she would remember really personal things. And I was like, oh my goodness me. And I realized she was taking notes. You know what? It wasn't bad that she was taking notes. She took the time to take the notes and build connection with me. And it meant that I felt safer in the dentist chair. It's not a pleasant place to be. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with taking notes, especially if you're like me and somewhat forgetful. I genuinely care about the person in front of me, but I also have a terrible memory. It's not wrong. It just is. So I really want you to start using that recipe. Look at your existing network, reach out to 10 people at a time, ask for catch up, go in with the intention of solving a problem, exciting them, building rapport, building respect, and then casually mention at the end, you're open to discussing opportunities if there's anyone in their network that they'd be happy to introduce you to. And that's your networking recipe. I want you now to build a networking habit. If you're actively job hunting, if you are full-time work, I want you to think at between 10 people a week and 10 people a day, depending on how much time you've got to go at it. It is far more profitable than applying for jobs. Stop applying for jobs. Only apply for a job in tandem with reaching out to your network and saying, hey, could I speak to you about this role? Right? Stop applying for jobs in general. Most of them are not hiring from applications. Okay? But build a networking habit. If you are in a role right now and you're listening to this because you're kind of curious, well, one, ask yourself why you're listening to this. It might be that it is time to job hunt and there's a reason why you're listening. But if you were just like curious about networking, which I applaud, by the way, I want you to be aiming to build one new connection a week, which means potentially reaching out to 5 to 10 people a week to have a conversation and have a new connection introduced to you, right? Whether you're full-time employed, not job hunting, unemployed and job hunting, networking should just be something you always do. Use LinkedIn strategically, use industry events strategically. I will admit, if I go to a conference, I don't do any LinkedIn for 2 weeks. I focus instead on following up with all the people I met at a conference or the event, right? I will down tools on LinkedIn and focus on building that rapport, often through LinkedIn, in fact. I will, at the event, make sure I'm connecting with everybody on LinkedIn and then follow up with them, try and have follow-on coffee chats, one-on-one syncs, and build that relationship. I want you to ask yourself, who is one person you can reach out to this week? One person. That's it. I want you to remember, you don't need to love networking. I like networking. I love the people I meet networking, but I don't love it. I just know I love the people. But you know what? As an introvert, sometimes it's still hard to reach out. But I do want you to know you can learn to make it work and you can learn to make it less uncomfortable. So if you've been telling your stories about this isn't for you, it doesn't work for you or anything like that, I want you to flip that narrative and tell yourself you can find a way this to work for you. Right, my final parting shot here, recruiter networking. This is a little bit different. Recruiters are expecting you to reach out about jobs and they don't have time for you to solve their problems, but they do still need to be treated as a human. So you should aim to have 100 to 200 recruiters in your network. You might be thinking, I've only got 200 people in my network. Well, there's work to do, my love. Okay. I want you to start looking at second degree connections who are recruiters. So look at people who do jobs similar to you and look at what recruiters they are connected to. There's a decent chance those recruiters are relevant to your industry. Reach out to them. There's no harm. Ask for a coffee chat. A lot of them will just connect with you on LinkedIn and not do anything else. The power is in the follow-up though. I always say send recruiters 3 or 4 messages before giving up, typically a week apart. There's a little bit more nuance to that. There's a bit of a recipe I give people, like how many days apart, but a week apart is good enough for starting off. And basically use variations upon I'd love to have a coffee chat about who you're hiring right now, what you're looking for right now, stuff like that, right? They might not hire people like you. That's okay. But they may well know people that hire people like you. So if in doubt, build that connection. You ideally want 100 to 200 executive recruiters in your LinkedIn network. And by executive recruiters, I mean they work for a recruitment company, not for another company. A lot of companies will still use executive recruiters for anything on senior director upwards, certainly VP upwards. They won't necessarily use an in-house recruitment firm unless they're a big company. So look for executive recruiters. You can't have too many of those. And then the other thing I would remind you about executive recruiters is these people have at least 10,000 people in the network, if not more. They are going to forget you by the end of the week. There is nothing wrong with reaching out to an executive recruiter once every couple of months and just reminding them who you are and why you're awesome. And they do expect you to say, I'm looking for an opportunity right now. This is the one difference with just networking with your rest of your network. A recruiter, however, is not going to necessarily be as open to referring you to lots of other people. But if they've got something on their books that's relevant, they may well just want to have a chat with you because The more qualified candidates they can get, the more they can show that they're good at their job to the people paying them, which is the company. So that's my final takeaway here. Recruiter networking is incredibly important. And again, the more you can do it, even when you're not looking for work, the better, because you just want a whole load of recruiters in your network at all times. But at the same time, it is different from your other networking. So let's go back to that question I asked a few minutes ago. Who is one person you're going to reach out to this week? If in doubt, I would love you to pop over to LinkedIn for a little bit of accountability. Drop a DM to me and tell you that you've just listened to this episode and you're going to reach out to one person this week, and I will hold you accountable. I hope this episode has demystified networking a little bit for you, maybe helped you deal with some of your mindset. I would love to know whether this is working for you, what is and isn't working for you. If we can pull knowledge, because this is changing all the time, if we can pull knowledge as to what is working, the more women we can help elevate in this industry. There is plenty of work for all of us, but women, we need to know how to get ahead. Men are being mentored left, right, and center. We've got to do a little bit for each other. So if you're finding something that works, reach out to me. Let me know. I would be honored and delighted to hear what is and isn't working for you. Until next time, keep networking and check in on your mindset every time you tell yourself, I don't have time to network.